Manipulators don't beat you with strength, they beat you with confusion. They never attack your body, they attack your sense of reality. One day you feel certain about who you are, what you saw, what you deserve. The next day you're apologizing for things you didn't do, accepting terms you never agreed to, and wondering if you're the problem. You felt this, haven't you? That sick feeling when someone twists your words, makes you doubt yourself, and somehow walks away looking like the victim while you look unstable, selfish, or crazy. In that moment, you're not a person anymore. You're a puppet, and the strings are inside your own mind. That's how manipulators win, not by overpowering you, but by making you surrender yourself. So understand this. Outsmarting manipulators is not about being nicer, louder, or more emotional. It's about becoming more strategic, more cold in your analysis, more loyal to reality than to anyone's approval. Machiavelli warned that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy, and that a ruler who forgets this ends up destroyed by his own illusions. You might not be a prince, but the same law applies to your life. In every family, workplace, friend group, and relationship, there are people quietly playing games of power, ego, and control. While you're busy trying to be fair, they're busy shaping the story, and the one who controls the story controls the outcome. The question is simple. Will you stay the pawn in someone else's narrative or become the player who rewrites the script? In this video, you're going to learn 7 genius ways to outsmart manipulators drawn from Machiavellian strategy, dark psychology, and brutal observation of human nature. Not tricks to become a cartoon villain, but weapons to stop being prey. When you really understand these, something changes. You stop reacting emotionally. You start seeing patterns. You become unreadable, unnerving, and very, very hard to use. Let's start by destroying one dangerous illusion, that manipulators are loud, obvious, and easy to spot. Most of the time, they're charming. They smile, they listen, they remember details. They forget small things that matter to you, then act hurt when you call it out. They praise you when they need something, go distant when you set boundaries, and then suddenly become warm again when you give in. This is not random, it's conditioning, like training a dog with treats and shock. Except the dog is your nervous system, your fear of being rejected, your hunger to be seen as good, kind, loyal. That's why most self-help advice fails you here. You're told to communicate more, to open up, to be vulnerable, to assume the best in people. That works with the rare person who is honest and emotionally mature. With manipulators, it makes you easier to map and easier to control. They study your values, your fears, your guilt buttons, and then sell you a version of yourself that always benefits them. You're not that kind of person, right? You'd never abandon a friend. Translation, do what I want or feel like a monster. So the first genius way to outsmart manipulators is this. You stop playing on the emotional field and you drag them onto the field of facts. Call this thinking in evidence, not feelings. The average person argues about intention. I didn't mean it like that. You're misunderstanding me. That's not what happened. The manipulator loves this because intention is fog. You can't prove or disprove it. They can twist it forever. Instead, you calmly return to behavior and pattern. Here's what you did. Here's when you did it. Here's how many times it's happened. No attacking, no raised voice, just a cold description of reality. Now watch what happens. The manipulator will try to drag you back into the fog. Why are you being so negative? You're overreacting. I can't believe you think so badly of me. That's bait. They want you defending your tone instead of their actions. You refuse. You stay on evidence. This is not about what kind of person you are. It's about what keeps happening. When you do this consistently, something powerful shifts. You stop being the emotional defendant and become the quiet judge. They feel it. And people who rely on confusion hate nothing more than someone who remembers, records, and refuses to drown in the fog. Remember this line, I don't argue about intentions, I look at patterns. That alone will save you years of being dragged into pointless emotional trials. But there's a second genius move that makes manipulators deeply uncomfortable. You become opaque. You stop giving them the data they need to control you. Most people hand manipulators a detailed user manual to their mind. They overshare weaknesses, fears, dreams, past wounds, and then act shocked when those exact things get used against them in arguments and negotiations. You think you're building intimacy. They are building leverage. Machiavelli advised rulers to be a great pretender and dissembler, revealing only what served their purpose. You don't have to fake who you are, but you need to control what people can see. Start practicing strategic ambiguity. When someone fishes for your insecurities, you deflect with vague, half-true answers. When they push you to explain why you feel a certain way, you don't pour your soul out on command. You give short, calm statements. That doesn't work for me. I'll think about it. I'm not comfortable with that. Notice there's no long justification there, because every extra explanation is another data point they can exploit later. Manipulators study your emotional tells the way a card shark studies nervous gamblers. They watch what makes you flinch, what makes you rush to defend yourself, what makes you chase their approval. When you become harder to read, they lose their bearings. You'll see it in their eyes, that subtle frustration when the old buttons don't produce the old reactions. This is the beginning of something important. You're no longer walking into interactions as prey. You're walking in as a sovereign being with a private inner world they are not entitled to access. And once you combine evidence-based thinking with emotional opacity, the entire balance of power begins to tilt in your favor. There's a third move that almost no one teaches you, but every powerful person uses instinctively. You control the frame or you lose. Manipulators don't just argue with you. They decide what you're arguing about. That's frame. The frame is the invisible story about what's really happening in this interaction and what role you're supposed to play. If you accept their frame, you've already lost, even if your arguments are sharp. Watch how this works. They say, "Why are you being so selfish?" Hidden frame, you are selfish. You are on trial. They are the judge. And what do most people do? They defend themselves inside that frame. "I'm not selfish. I did this and that. I always help you." Now you're dancing to their music. The argument doesn't matter. The role assignment is already in place. You're the accused, begging to be cleared of charges. The Machiavellian move is to refuse the frame itself. You answer calmly, "I'm not accepting selfish as the starting point. Let's talk about what actually happened." Or even colder, "This isn't about me being selfish. It's about you not getting what you want." Instant frame shift. Now the hidden story is different. They are not the judge. They are someone reacting badly to not getting their way. You are the one naming reality. Manipulators survive by writing the script and handing you a role. Selfish, crazy, ungrateful, disloyal, abusive, controlling, unreasonable. Your job is simple. Don't read the script. Whenever a conversation feels like you're suddenly on trial, pause and ask yourself, what role are they trying to put me in right now? Once you name it, you can reject it. You don't have to convince them. You just have to stop behaving as if that role is real. Try this in a scenario. They say, "You're overreacting. It's not a big deal." Old you explains in detail why it is a big deal. Voice gets shaky, heart races, you try to make them understand. New you, whether it's a big deal or not is my decision. I'm telling you this doesn't work for me. See the difference? You're no longer auditioning for the role of rational, calm person, so they'll approve your feelings. You're the sovereign making a decision. Remember, the one who defines what the interaction is about controls the interaction. Never let a manipulator define the trial, the charge, or your role. Now, the fourth genius way to outsmart manipulators is to weaponize time and silence. Manipulation thrives in urgency. Answer now. Why aren't you replying? If you walk away, it means you don't care. They want you emotional, rushed, cornered. They want your nervous system panicking, so your reasoning collapses and you grab whatever makes the tension stop. So you do the opposite. You slow everything down. You don't argue in real time while your heart is pounding. You don't send long essays over text at 2 a.m. You don't agree to anything on the spot just to keep the peace. You use a simple, lethal phrase. "I'll get back to you on this." That sentence is a guillotine for manipulation, because the moment you step away, their spells start to break. You see patterns. You see how every time you say no, they cry, rage, or guilt trip. You see how they never apologize, only reframe. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn how not to be good when necessary. This is one of those moments. You have to be willing to look cold, to not soothe their anxiety right away, to not make it better at the cost of your sanity. Imagine they send you a wall of text. "I can't believe you would treat me like this after everything I've done. You're just like everyone else. I thought you were different." Old you frantically types back, clarifies, over-explains, apologizes for the misunderstanding. New you puts the phone down. You go shower, train, eat, think. You wait hours, maybe a day. Then you answer with one calm message, if you answer at all. "I've read what you wrote. I'm not okay with the way you're talking to me. We can talk when this is calmer." No debate, no justification, no frantic reassurance. You've just done something powerful. You've removed their access to your nervous system on demand. And once manipulators feel that they can't summon your attention and emotion like a servant with a bell, they start losing control. Some will escalate to see if they can still break you. Others will quietly drift to easier targets. Either way, you win. Silence, delay, and space are not avoidance. They are strategic tools. So when in doubt, remember this rule. If I feel pressured to answer now, the answer is no or later. Urgency is the weapon of the manipulator. Time is the shield of the strategist. Now let's add a fifth technique that turns the whole game upside down. You stop explaining and you start asking. Most people under manipulation play defense. They explain what they meant. They explain why they're hurt. They explain why something is unfair. Explanation is not power. Power is making the other person reveal themselves. You do that with questions. Calm, simple, relentless questions. They say, "If you really cared, you'd do this for me." You respond, "Why does me caring depend on me doing exactly what you want?" They say, "Everyone thinks you're difficult. It's not just me." You respond, "Who specifically, and what exactly did I do that was difficult?" They say, "You're making me feel like the bad guy." You respond, "What part of your behavior are you uncomfortable looking at right now?" Questions like this do three things. First, they interrupt the emotional attack. The spotlight swings from you to them. Second, they force clarity. Vague accusations can't survive precise questions. Third, they signal something crucial. You are not scared to see their motives. Manipulators thrive when your focus is inward. Am I bad? Am I wrong? Once your gaze turns outward, what are you doing? What are you avoiding saying? Their tricks start to crumble. This doesn't mean playing therapist. You're not there to help them explore their childhood. Your questions are strategic, short, sharp, and always pushing towards specifics. Walk me through exactly what you expect from me. How does this benefit both of us, not just you? What happens if I say no? That last one is brutal. What happens if I say no? If the answer is, "I'll leave, I'll rage, I'll punish you, I'll smear you," good. Now you see the game clearly. The price of peace was your obedience. Once you expose that deal to yourself, it becomes much easier to refuse it. You'll notice something interesting when you start using questions, time, and frame control together. The tone of your interactions shifts. You're no longer that reactive, explain everything, emotionally naked version of yourself. You're calm, you're slow, you're precise. They start to feel like they are the ones under observation, and that's exactly where you want them. There's a sixth principle most people never grasp until it's too late. You stop trying to change them, and you start documenting reality. This is brutal to accept, but essential to power. Manipulators do not change because you explained yourself better. They do not wake up one day and realize, oh, I've been cruel. That moment you're waiting for, the apology, the accountability, the breakthrough, is not coming. Not because they're incapable of self-awareness, but because the manipulation works for them. Why would they change a strategy that consistently gets them what they want? Most people waste years in this trap. They think if they just find the right words, the right tone, the right proof, the manipulator will finally see the truth and stop. This is not love. This is not loyalty. This is cope. You're negotiating with someone who benefits from your confusion, and as long as you're focused on changing them, you're not focused on protecting yourself. So here's the Machiavellian shift. You stop hoping and you start documenting. You keep records, screenshots of contradictory messages, notes on promises broken, patterns repeated, timestamps of when something was said versus when they claimed it never happened. Not because you want to expose them in some dramatic confrontation, but because reality becomes your anchor when they try to make you doubt your own memory. Gaslighting only works when you second-guess what you know. When you have receipts, not just feelings, their spells lose power. Imagine this. They tell you, I never said that. You're making things up again. Old you scrambles mentally, questions your memory, backs down to avoid conflict. New you pulls up the message, reads it aloud, calm as ice. Here's the message. Date, time, exact words. Do you want to keep saying I'm making it up, or do we talk about what's actually happening? Suddenly, the fog lifts. They may rage, deflect, say you're being crazy for keeping receipts, but that reaction is admission. They know the game just changed. Machiavelli was clear. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. Translation: perception beats truth unless you force the truth into view. Documentation forces truth into view. Not for their benefit, for yours. It reminds you that you are not crazy, that what you remember happened, that the pattern is real. And once you trust your own perception more than their performance, you become almost impossible to control. Now let's go deeper, because the seventh and most dangerous way to outsmart manipulators is not a tactic, it's a transformation. You stop needing their approval. This is where most so-called dark psychology content stays shallow. It gives you scripts, comebacks, mind games, but it doesn't touch the core wound that makes you vulnerable in the first place. That wound is this. You still believe your value depends on being seen as good by people who have no intention of seeing you clearly. You still flinch when they call you selfish, cold, crazy, or cruel. You still feel the need to prove you're not the villain in their story. That need is the hook, and as long as it's inside you, every manipulator who walks into your life will find it and yank it. So the final move is the hardest and the most freeing. You stop hoping, and you accept that some people will hate you for having boundaries, and you become okay with that. You stop defending your character to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. You let them think you're difficult. You let them tell others you're cold. You let them paint you as the bad guy in the group chat, the family WhatsApp, the office gossip. And you do not chase their narrative to correct it. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Your reputation among manipulators and their enablers is not your reputation among people who matter. Powerful people, sovereign people, people who have done their own inner work, they see through the smear campaigns. They recognize strength disguised as difficulty. They respect boundaries even when others call them cruelty. The ones who turn on you for refusing to be used were never your people. They were spectators enjoying a show where you played the role of the giver, the fixer, the emotional servant. The moment you step off stage, they boo. Let them. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But here's the modern translation for your life. It is better to be respected and misunderstood than loved and used. You cannot control how manipulators will frame you when you start setting boundaries, but you can control whether their opinion holds any power over your decisions. When you truly internalize this, something shifts in your energy. You stop over-explaining. You stop performing goodness to prove you're not what they say. You stop letting accusations sit in your chest like poison. You become unreactive, unbothered, unmoved. And that is what makes you dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you're no longer a puppet dancing for validation. Let's bring this all together. You've learned to think in evidence, not feelings. To become opaque and stop handing manipulators a user manual to your psyche. To control the frame or refuse to play. To weaponize time, silence, and strategic delay. To stop explaining and start asking. To document reality so gaslighting can't rewrite your memory. And finally, to stop needing approval from manipulators who weaponize it. These aren't party tricks. This is a complete rewiring of how you move through power dynamics. But here's what no one tells you about this transformation. It will feel lonely at first. Because when you stop playing the roles people assigned you, some of them will leave. They'll call you changed. They'll say power corrupted you, that you're not the person they knew. You're right. You're not. You were the person who absorbed their chaos, managed their emotions, apologized for things you didn't do, and pretended not to notice when you were being used. That person kept the peace. But that person was not free. The you that's emerging now, calm, strategic, sovereign, doesn't keep the peace at any cost. You keep your integrity. And some people can't survive around someone like that. So yes, you may lose relationships in this process, but look closely at what you're losing. Relationships where your value was your usefulness, where love was conditional on your compliance, where respect only existed as long as you stayed small. That's not loss. That's liberation. And in the space those people leave, something else grows. Real respect, real loyalty, relationships built on mutual truth, not convenient lies. You'll start attracting a different kind of person. People who aren't scared of your boundaries, people who value your honesty more than your agreeableness, people who see your refusal to be manipulated as strength, not coldness. This is the hidden reward of becoming dangerously smart. You don't just repel manipulators, you start calling in equals. Here's the part nobody likes to admit. You weren't just a victim in these dynamics. You were participating too. Not by being cruel, not by gaslighting, but by manipulating in a softer way, performing goodness so people would love you, bending your needs so people wouldn't leave, absorbing disrespect so nobody would be upset. That is still manipulation. It's self-betrayal disguised as kindness. And as long as you cling to that identity, the endlessly patient one, the forgiving one, the understanding one, you will keep attracting those who feed on exactly that. So, if you truly want to become untouchable to manipulators, you have to do something most people will never do. You turn inward and confront your own shadow. Ask yourself brutally, why do you need to be seen as good? Why is it intolerable to you that someone might think you're selfish, cruel, or uncaring? Where did you learn that love is something you earn by suffering? Maybe it was a parent who only gave affection when you were useful. Maybe it was a social group that rewarded you for laughing off disrespect. Maybe it was a relationship where every boundary meant a fight, tears, and threats to leave. Those experiences carved grooves in your nervous system. Now, every time someone withdraws approval, your body reacts like death is coming, heart racing, thoughts spiraling, urge to fix it at any cost. Manipulators smell that, like blood in the water. Robert Greene calls this your tragic flaw, the emotional pattern that keeps you predictable and exploitable. You can learn every tactic in this video, but if you refuse to look at that wound, you'll still bend when the right person presses it. The sovereign move is not to become numb, it's to become willing to be misunderstood. You sit with the discomfort of someone being angry at you. You allow the silence after you say no. You let your reputation distort in the minds of people who never tried to really know you. That's the dark inner work, letting the old identity die. The identity of the good one, the the rescuer, the endlessly available friend, the partner who always makes it work. In its place, something else forms. You become someone who can love deeply but not at the expense of self-respect, someone who can be generous but not on demand, someone who can be kind but not gullible. That person is dangerous because you can't be bribed with approval or blackmailed with guilt. Now, I'm not going to leave you in theory. You need a concrete challenge, a way to burn these ideas into your behavior. For the next 7 days, you will run an experiment. Think of it as your initiation into a new role, player, not piece. First, you slow your responses. Anytime you feel pushed, cornered, guilt-tripped, or emotionally flooded, you do not explain, justify, or argue. You say, "I'll get back to you on this," or you say nothing at all. Then you give it at least an hour. Second, you track patterns. Every evening you take 5 minutes and write down who tried to make you feel guilty, crazy, or selfish. What did they say? How did your body react? What did they want from you? You're building your own Machiavellian intelligence file, not on them, but on the game itself. Third, you set one boundary that scares you. Not 10, 1. Maybe you cancel a favor you always do. Maybe you say, "No, I'm not available," and you don't give a reason. Maybe you end a conversation when the tone turns manipulative instead of trying to soothe it. Your job is not to do this perfectly. Your job is to notice. Notice who respects your pause and who panics. Notice who can hear no and who explodes or collapses. Notice how much of your old behavior was just fear of losing approval dressed up as being nice. By day 3, you'll start to feel the pull to go back, the urge to over-explain, the itch to send that long message clarifying how you're not a bad person. Don't. Sit in the discomfort like you're training a muscle, because you are. By day 5 or 6, something else appears. Little shifts. Someone speaks to you with more caution than before. Someone who used to walk all over you hesitates. Someone, maybe quietly, begins to respect you more. And a few will fall away. Let them. That's the dead weight leaving your life. People whose connection to you depended entirely on your willingness to be weak. On the 7th day, look in the mirror and tell yourself the new truth. I would rather be alone than controlled. Say it until your nervous system believes you. Because once that sinks in, manipulators lose their deepest leverage. They can't use abandonment as a weapon against someone who would choose solitude over self-betrayal. From there, everything you've learned in this video becomes 10 times more powerful. Your evidence-based thinking, your opacity, your frame control, your questions, your silence. These are no longer just tricks. They're expressions of who you've become. You are no longer the defendant in other people's courts. You are the judge of what enters your life. Understand this clearly. The world is not fair. People are not neutral. Power is always in play, even in love, friendship, and family. You can either pretend that isn't true and keep getting blindsided, or you can accept it fully and start playing consciously. This doesn't make you evil. It makes you awake. The manipulators in your life are counting on you staying harmlessly intelligent, smart enough to understand your pain, but too conditioned to ever step out of line. You've just proven you're willing to be more than that. So, here's the line in the sand. From this point forward, you do not apologize for protecting your mind. You do not explain your boundaries like a criminal begging for leniency. You do not trade your peace for peacekeeping. You are not here to be digestible. You are not here to be endlessly available. You are not here to be cast in other people's stories as the convenient, self-sacrificing extra. You are here to become sovereign. If you want to keep sharpening this side of yourself, your dark intelligence, your Machiavellian perception, your ability to move through a predatory world without becoming prey, then treat this channel as a training ground, not a source of entertainment, a contract. Each time you watch, you are reminding yourself, I refuse to go back to sleep. I refuse to be easy to use. So subscribe, not because I asked, but because you've decided that staying harmless, naive, and manipulatable is no longer acceptable to you. You've seen the game now, and once you see it, you only have 2 options. Keep playing the old role and suffer consciously, or step into the player seat and rewrite how people are allowed to move around you. Choose, and then act in alignment with that choice. Every conversation, every message, every silence. That's how you stop being the puppet and become the one who can never again be quietly controlled.